Takayanagi watches Eiji carefully, relieved that he finally has solid information about what happened. He tells him to rest in the infirmary, insisting he doesn't have to force himself to go to class right away. Understanding the disruption, he asks Mitsui-sensei to let Eiji stay for a while, but worries about the gap in his studies. To compensate, he arranges for other teachers not currently teaching to give Eiji supplementary lessons in a separate room. Today proves to be too chaotic, so the principal and vice principal adjust the schedule, setting the lessons to begin tomorrow. The principal, also an English teacher, takes charge of that, while Iwai-sensei, the dean of students, graciously agrees to help. When Takayanagi apologizes for letting the victim skip class, Iwai reassures him warmly, saying it was a considerate move and that he appreciates it, easing Takayanagi's tension. Yet a problem lingers. When Takayanagi brings up informing Eiji's parents, Eiji shakes his head firmly, refusing. He doesn't want to worry his mother, who raised him alone, or his older brother, striving to protect the family business at such a young age. Among all the matters they discussed, this rejection hits hardest. Takayanagi steps back, temporarily setting the issue aside, but he knows he cannot remain silent. As a teacher entrusted with these children, he feels the weight of responsibility pressing him to share the truth with Eiji's family. Takayanagi wrestles with the weight of sharing Eiji's situation with his parents. He knows delaying risks withholding crucial information, yet forcing it could further wound Eiji's spirit. Respecting the trust Eiji places in them, he painfully understands why the boy refuses. In the back of his mind, he tells himself it is not the wrong choice, just difficult. Earlier, he spoke with the principal, who acknowledges the dilemma. From their standpoint, contacting the parents immediately would be ideal, but Eiji's feelings must be respected. They are outsiders to his heart, and old habits in psychology might unintentionally cause harm. If needed, Mitsui-sensei, an expert, can step in, and a counselor is soon to be brought on board. Takayanagi resolves to tread carefully, honoring the personal space of a teenager while trusting that sharing Eiji's concerns with Mitsui-sensei may offer him some relief. Meanwhile, his focus shifts to the investigation. He plans to question Ida and Ueda from the class soccer team, followed by Miyuki, though her personality makes direct involvement unlikely. That leaves someone close to Kondo as the primary suspect. He intends first to hear their stories, then, if nothing arises, follow up with a student from Kondo's junior high. Yesterday, the class president reported that by 8 a.m., scribbles were already on his desk, suggesting morning practice and reinforcing the likelihood of the student's involvement. After meeting with Ida, Takayanagi calls in Ueda, asking him to leave the class and come to the guidance office. Brown-haired and tense, Ueda asks why he was summoned, and Takayanagi leans into his usual casual act to ease him. He explains that Ueda's name came up while talking to students yesterday, particularly those who arrived early, and that scribbles were already on Eiji's desk, making him a necessary witness. Ueda tries to deflect, joking about the hardships of being a teacher, claiming the soccer team goes straight to the club room and saw nothing unusual. He mentions only seeing Ida that morning. Takayanagi nods, acknowledging their statements, and lets him return to class. Ueda leaves with an unmotivated smile, and Takayanagi exhales, frustrated. Both Ueda and Ida give the exact same responses, as if following a script. They confirm suspicion, state they went to the club room, report seeing only each other, and then challenge him to provide proof. The precision of their answers strikes him as highly suspicious. For now, he decides to watch them closely, focusing on uncovering the mastermind behind their actions, knowing that he already suspects who it is but needs more evidence to confirm. Eiji sits in the infirmary, feeling the strange mix of relief and discomfort. Since the adjustments to his studies can't start today, teachers will begin helping him tomorrow, and he hadn't expected the school to go to such lengths. Time goes by, and lying in a bed he doesn't really feel good. Mitsui-sensei checks in, asking if he's all right. He reassures her he's fine, and she reminds him that even if his body is unhurt, his mind is tired. Her constant kindness leaves him feeling slightly embarrassed, yet comforted. He admits to feeling protected and safe under the teacher's care, and she chuckles, reminding him that Takayanagi-sensei is the one working the hardest. Mitsui offers to borrow books from the library, making it a little secret between them to keep him occupied without alerting the others. Eiji can't help but laugh at the mix of her friendly smile and playful tone, and he agrees. She brings a selection of books, recent bestsellers, last year's top literary works, classic medical manga by a master, and interview compilations with leading figures, choosing stories that aren't too heavy but full of human drama, sensing his need for distraction and gentle engagement. Eiji, a fast reader, usually devours literature in the mornings, and he feels grateful to have access to the books Mitsui-sensei brought. High school students rarely afford books over 1,000 yen, so this feels like a rare treat. She returns from the staff room with a smile and asks if he wants a break, offering to make green tea. The aroma is rich, the tea was clearly high quality, and it relaxes him as he sips. On the top of his head, he asks why she became a teacher. She laughs, confessing she initially got her certification as an insurance policy while pursuing a college degree, never knowing what she truly wanted. She admits she worked in a general company before switching to teaching 5 years ago, and this ends up surprising him. She explains that she had once feared commitment to teaching despite enjoying her internship and being praised as a good educator. Eiji listens quietly as her honesty fills the room with warmth, feeling a rare ease in the infirmary with her. Eiji listens as Mitsui-sensei opens up, her popularity among students evident in the way they trust her. She admits she's still scared, that the weight of being a teacher, knowing one word can change a child's future, has always made her anxious. Eiji asks, perhaps a bit abruptly, if she is still afraid, and she confirms, saying it's necessary. She wants to share a little of herself. She meets his gaze and begins, recounting her struggles at her previous job, a sports company she describes as old-fashioned and harsh. Her mind and body reached their limits, but she had to keep trying, unable to confide in anyone, trapped alone. Eiji can't help but feel the story mirrors his own past. If Aoi, Satoshi, and Takayanagi hadn't noticed him, he might still be forcing himself through classes and enduring harassment. Mitsui recalls being rushed to the hospital from overwork, awakening to find her mother crying beside her, apologizing for not noticing. She remembers her own apology in return, and her mother's frustration that she hadn't spoken up, warning her that parents can carry regret when children suffer in silence. She explains that her experiences shaped the teacher she is now. Unconsciously, Eiji covers his eyes with a blanket, and seeing him, Mitsui reassures him gently, repeating that they are there for him, over and over, filling the infirmary with a warmth that eases his tension and brings an unexpected sense of comfort again. Takayanagi prepares for the next interrogation, and the student he wants enters the counselor's office, Amada Miyuki, Eiji's childhood friend and the only one besides Kondo who knows all his secrets. An honor student and last semester's vice president candidate, she has been Eiji's lover since last winter. Beautiful and popular, she hardly seems the type to betray him, yet love can cloud judgment and drive people to ruin. Takayanagi's mind wanders to historical lessons on love's dangers. He apologizes for calling her, and Miyuki responds calmly, noting it's about Eiji. Yet beneath her composure, dark circles under her eyes and a pale complexion shows stress. She insists she isn't involved, speaking almost hysterically, explaining that Eiji misunderstood her when he saw her consulting with Kondo. The composed image of the class vice president quickly dissolves as she mutters, her voice fast and urgent, leaving Takayanagi listening closely. He asks, in a pressing tone, if Eiji had grabbed her arm, seeking clarity amid her tangled explanation. Miyuki admits that Eiji did grab her arm, pulling hard to separate her from Kondo, explaining that they had been discussing breaking up for a while. Takayanagi notes that her account differs from Eiji's story, and she quickly insists he must have lied. He lets her finish, then asks about the SNS post claiming Eiji attacked her. A flicker of suspicion crosses her face, as expected. She explains that Kondo, worried about her, may have spoken to someone, but he wouldn't spread rumors for fun, and she admits a small mark from Eiji's grip. For a moment she returns to her composed honor student self. Takayanagi asks a follow-up, framing it carefully. In all honesty, he needed to verify the SNS posts, because if AG truly attacked her, the school must act. He kept asking if he really did pull her in aggression. The question makes her pause, and he sees that clearly she was unprepared for this. Meanwhile, Takayanagi observes that this is a strategy, appealing to her conscience while hinting at consequences. He had already told AG to save the SNS message logs, knowing he could compare them to discern who was lying. Watching from the sidelines, he sees AG obediently screenshot the messages, confirming his suspicions. Deep down, Miyuki carries guilt for betraying AG and putting him in a dangerous situation, leaving her shaken. She looks down, stuttering, and her composure cracking under the weight of the truth. Takayanagi holds her gaze, emphasizing the gravity of the situation, so important it could make or break a young man's life. Miyuki protests that she was upset too, and he acknowledges it, immediately softening the tension. He calls it a day for now, telling her he may speak again and that if she remembers anything, she should report it right away. She hesitates, insists there is nothing more, and he thanks her, sending her back to class. Amada leaves, thoughtful, while Takayanagi quietly feels a burst of regret. If she had told the whole truth, things might have unfolded differently, but the circumstances forced a thorough investigation into her inconsistencies to uncover the mastermind behind the incident. It is the only way, though it means keeping Miyuki in check and monitored. Using AG's SNS logs and another hidden leverage would leave no escape, yet the crucial piece to identify the mastermind is still missing. For now, she remains in the game. He mutters a silent apology to her, recognizing the burden placed on an innocent student. Takayanagi prepares for the final interrogation, the one that should reveal the mastermind behind everything. Kondo, the third-year student at the center of suspicion, enters the counseling office with a casual greeting and an innocent smile, his carefree attitude bordering on insolence. Takayanagi asks if he knows why he was summoned, and Kondo answers cheerfully that it must be about AG hurting Miyuki. The goal to keep framing AG even here was visible clearly, and this ends up showing a dangerous kind of talent that he has mastered. This type of talent should never be allowed to grow in a person like Kondo. Takayanagi confirms that Miyuki seemed shaken and unable to give a clear account of the incident, so he wants to hear from Kondo, supposedly the one closest to her. Without hesitation, Kondo claims that Miyuki came to him for advice that day, saying she wanted to end things with her boyfriend but he wouldn't agree. He adds that she felt AG was becoming a little obsessive, even stalkerish, and that she was frightened. Takayanagi listens quietly, hiding his reaction behind a simple agreement. For Takayanagi, the priority now is to face Kondo directly and hear his version, even if it means enduring the boy's arrogance. When asked if he's convinced, Kondo replies with a sly smile, telling Takayanagi to press further about the SNS post. Kondo quickly deflects, claiming the account isn't his and that he only shared Miyuki's injury photo with club members to protect her from a stalker. According to him, someone else must have spread it out of misinformation. The way he spins lies so smoothly makes it clear he's more skilled at deception than soccer. When questioned if he knows who actually spread it, Kondo insists he doesn't, then shamelessly asks for a favor. Since the soccer team has an important match ahead, he begs that even if the culprit is found, the matter be kept quiet, suggesting it was all done for Miyuki's sake. His words were filled with self-interest, the kind that would fit a politician perfectly. Takayanagi holds back, keeping distance while focusing on drawing out more information, and Kondo, encouraged by the response, flatters him, saying he's glad the teacher sees reason. He adds that defending a stalker would only bring shame to the school. Takayanagi swallows back the fury that rises, telling himself that calling Kondo the school's greatest disgrace out loud would only ruin the interrogation. Instead, he steadies his tone, determined to corner this boy without giving him a chance to fight back. He reminds him that if AG truly hurt Amada, the school may have no choice but to punish him and even involve the police, then asks directly if he saw it with his own eyes. Predictably, Kondo nods, claiming he did, but quickly adds that Miyuki probably doesn't want to report it. When pressed for the reason, he argues that dragging the case out will only damage Miyuki's reputation and force her to relive painful memories, insisting that's why he asked the teacher for help. On the surface it sounds logical, but to Takayanagi it reeks of calculation, a carefully built excuse designed to protect himself while pretending to act for her sake. At the mention of the police, Kondo's smile goes away, a crack of bitterness flashing across his face, and that reaction alone confirms there are truths he desperately wants to keep hidden from real investigators. Worse still, though Takayanagi only hints that Miyuki is too shaken to give a clear account, Kondo slips and speaks as if he knows every detail, even bringing up cheating. That careless step ties him directly to the shadows behind the case. Takayanagi mutters an ambiguous reply, letting him believe the exchange is over. Kondo takes the opening, asking to leave for university training in Tokyo, his voice sharp with impatience. He is excused, and he strides out with airy confidence, his steps too light for the gravity of what lingers behind. Intelligent, eloquent, far sharper than his classmates, yet still only a high schooler. For an instant, pity stirs, watching him charge forward without realizing the weight of his actions. Then Takayanagi's gaze settles on the empty chair he left, and with cold disdain he whispers inwardly for the boy to keep walking, straight down the road to hell. Kondo leans back, laughter spilling out as if he's just won a game. He mutters to himself that the whole thing was boring, nothing more than a teacher doing his job. The tension from the interrogation already feels like a joke to him, and with a smug grin, he keeps laughing to himself, convinced it's all over. Eiji tells the teacher that he already informed Takayanagi-sensei about sharing everything with his parents, and watching the teacher's faint relief had almost felt amusing. He nodded along, remembering Mitsui-sensei's advice and deciding it would be childish to keep running. No more escape. If he wanted to fight, he needed adults on his side. Takayanagi offered to speak in his place, but he insisted on doing it himself, earning quiet praise about how much stronger he had grown in just half a day. They briefly talked about his family's restaurant and arranging a meeting, and before leaving, Takayanagi handed him contact details, joking about being more energetic at night than in the morning. The odd confession made him laugh, easing the tension, and he left with a promise that he could rely on his teachers. Stepping out the gate, Eiji spotted a pretty junior waiting for him. She scolded him playfully for being late, and he muttered about being stopped at every turn and drawing cold stares once more. She teased that walking together that morning had earned him more enemies, but he admitted it with a faint smile. When she added that she was glad, and pointed on how it makes her happy to see that he has already seemed more relaxed than before, her sincerity left him a little startled, realizing how closely she had been watching him. He thanks her sincerely, admitting it's because she was the first to believe him, unlike everyone else except his friend, and she teases about being special, though the weight of his words lingers in her thoughtful expression. Walking side by side draws stares, fueling more rumors, yet she brushes it off with light-hearted talks about romance, while he worries about her reputation as the school idol. She reassures him gently. She was truly touched by how he still puts her first despite his struggles. When he cautiously asks if she's seeing someone, she points out with playful logic that if she were, she wouldn't have gone out with him yesterday, leaving him blown away. He apologizes, and she smiles, demanding a reward for waking up early, silently inviting him out for something sweet. His nervous smile meets her carefree atmosphere, and the endless mutters and talks of passing students filled the surrounding. The moment her bold invitation echoed, angry voices rose from the crowd, classmates questioning why she would ask him out, accusing her of breaking hearts, insisting it was impossible. Their words rang in his ears, leaving him stunned, but she only laughed at his frozen expression and pressed for an answer. Flustered, he tried to argue about the timing and the stairs, yet she looked him straight in the eye and declared she wanted to go out with him, asking again if he would accept. Ignoring the whispers around them, he agreed, not wanting to let her down, and she smiled like never before, effortlessly turning the scene in her favor. Together they headed to a cafe near the station, a refined spot more suited for college students than high schoolers. Despite her uniform, she fit in seamlessly with the antique setting, her elegance giving off the air of a refined young lady. Each glance, each small gesture, the beautiful way she lifted her teacup, and the faint aura in her gaze, all left him feeling as if he were in a dream. When she shared on how most confessions she received were shallow, she adds on how boys treated her as a trophy, this way her day-to-day life. He listened quietly, understanding her feelings, and shifted the mood by insisting the meal was on him. She chose pancakes with hot apple tea, and her smile returning as if the heaviness had never been there, while he matched her order, grateful just to sit across from her in this unlikely moment. Aoi excuses herself after ordering, retreating to the bathroom where her racing heartbeat betrays the bold front she had put on. Splashing cold water over her hands, she whispers to herself how strange it feels to be nervous about asking someone out, talking on how easily she has turned into just another girl in love. Quietly, she hopes her message reached him, that he truly understands how special he is to her. Meanwhile, Miyuki walks home alone, weighed down by the hollow ache inside her chest. She wonders if this heartbreak is her punishment for betraying Eiji and twisting the truth for the sake of Kondo happiness. With Kondo away for university training in Tokyo, she has no choice but to face the walk by herself. But the sight of Eiji ahead with Ichijo by his side stops her cold. He wears a bright and happy smile she has never seen before, while always sticks to him with the kind of expression she has never shared with anyone else. Overcome with jealousy, Miyuki swallows her words and walks on in silence, her emotions boiling with regret, rage and envy. Over pancakes, the two share stories that make it feel as though they have known each other far longer than a single day, though an air of uncertainty still lingers between them. Eiji knew that he needed to avoid touching on the family troubles that he already suspected weighs on Aoi, sensing the hesitation in her words when she briefly mentions not attending her affiliated high school because of family reasons. Eiji listens without pressing further, certain that with her grades and reputation, delinquency or poor performance could not have been the cause. Instead, their talk remains lively as he shares memories from his hometown, how he once caught a miser stealing from a shrine and reported him, and how Satoshi had saved him back then, which also ended up sparking their friendship. Yet behind the laughter, a quiet sorrow tugs at him, for Miyuki's place in those memories is one he deliberately erases to avoid speaking her name. Aoi notices the shadow crossing his face and, after sipping her apple tea with a gentle smile, she tells him softly that it's all right to admit when things are hard. She says she may not know the full story, but she understands enough, that no ordinary person could endure what he has without breaking, and that strength carried too far can shatter anyone. She urges him to speak to her before that day ever comes. She gently rubs his back, her touch warm and sympathetic, and when he asks why she trusts him, Aoi answers that yesterday it was simply because she refused to believe rumors she didn't understand, but today it's different. After spending just one day together, she has come to see that he isn't the type to act on gossip, and that he values others above himself and is willing to sacrifice for them, a rare quality she won't allow to be crushed by malice. If he suffers, she promises, she'll be by his side. Eiji thanks her in his usual awkward way, and she chuckles, teasing that it's only their second day together. Their laughter blends naturally, lightening the mood as time slips by. Eventually, she apologizes, saying she's had too many sweets already and will have to postpone the oyster fries, assuring him with a smile that she'll explain to his mother. Surprised, he asks when she even exchanged contact with his mom and if she's really alright, but she only giggles, calling it a secret before saying it's about time she heads home. With that, their first date comes to a quiet but memorable close. After parting with him, she steps into the waiting car, her mind lingering on the warmth of their time together. The moment at the school gate replays vividly. His firm and determined expression told her he had already decided to face his mother's, a strength she both admired and envied. That bond of trust within his family seemed unshakable, something she herself could never count on in her own home. The words she had offered him earlier were not just encouragement for him, but a quiet reminder she desperately needed for herself. She knows that if he hadn't been there that day on the rooftop, she would have crumbled entirely. When he thanked her, she could only smile, because in truth she who owed him gratitude, Eiji was the only one who reached out to her when she was standing at the edge of ruin and was pulled back by him before it was too late. Kondo, on the other side, quickly sizes up the field with confidence, thinking how no one here can really challenge him. His crisp passes shine, but the forwards keep wasting them, and the second team coach yells for his players not to get humiliated by a high schooler. Watching the captain struggle only fuels his pride. He knows the first team is where he belongs. Soon enough, the first team captain calls over Goda, a compact defensive midfielder, to mark him. Kondo welcomes the challenge, thinking this might be the test he needs to prove himself among college elites. But when the ball comes and he tries to take Goda on, his body crashes into something immovable, and he is sent tumbling, grass in his mouth. Embarrassed, he brushes it off as a fluke, but the uncomfortable sting started to linger. An hour later, his pride is in the trash bin, every dribble stripped away, every pass missed, leaving Kondo exposed as nothing more than a pretender. He decided to take a break and he goes over to the nearby bench, where he gulps down an energy drink to cool off, muttering excuses that he's just off his game today. Then he overhears Goda speaking with the coach, and when he hears the things they were talking about, his ground shakes. Their plans of recruiting him were changing and they started to list details about his lack of talent. Goda calls him nothing more than a high school king, fragile, predictable, a washed-up ace destined for second-string place. Staring at the bottle that slips from his hand, Kondo feels the weight of those words sink deeper than any tackle. Kondo sits on the bench with his eyes almost popping out from unexplainable rage, the painful sting of humiliation and mockery building inside him, as Goda and the coach continue to belittle him and expose his useless skills. Goda calmly points out Kondo's lack of drive and ambition, followed by his selfishness, and how he drags others down instead of lifting them up. These words landed harder than any tackle or takedown. These were the real facts about his skills that he always tried to hide. A crushed bottle at his feet leaks across the floor, but he barely notices, clenching his jaw as humiliation covers at his pride. The coach tries to argue that Kondo still has raw talent, recalling how he shined against weaker players, but Goda dismisses it as wasted potential bound to fail and fold in hard competition. Hearing this, his self-esteem and confidence shreds into thousands of pieces, and Kondo pulls out his phone and fires a message to Miyuki, the girl he sees as both a trophy and fine woman that he can use freely to relieve his lust, anger, and frustration. Predictably, she replies at once, eager to meet him despite everything, proving how tightly his manipulation binds her. Smirking, he sets their next meeting in the same entertainment district, the perfect place he knows, where he knows he can enjoy her and then use her to heal his wounded ego. He scoffs at the thought of staying at this university, and instead he ends up reminding himself to wait for an offer where he'll be treated like the star he believes he is. And when that day comes, he swears he'll crush Goda and anyone else who dared look down on him, making them regret ever walking on his pride. Eiji lingers at the doorway, where his chest tightened as he struggles to summon the courage to face what must be said. The weight of silence presses harder than any burden, yet the memory of those who trusted him, especially the junior who promised to stand beside him if he was in pain, pushes him forward. With a deep breath, he twists the lock and steps inside, greeting his mother with a faint greeting. She sits at the store table rearranging the books, and smiling softly she tells him his brother has stepped out to buy spices. She offers Eiji a refreshing drink, but when she noticed the serious look on his face, she knew something serious was happening, and in the next second she sets her papers aside. The warmth of her voice gives him just enough courage to speak, though his throat tightens and he started to struggle to breathe normally. He stutters a lot, and each word came out of his tongue in a painful way, as time seems to crawl until at last, trembling, he confesses that ever since summer vacation ended, he has been bullied at school. His mother's eyes widen to hear this, and in reality no mother would ever be able to hear these things from their children, worry shadowing her features as the truth he has hidden finally comes to light. Eiji's voice falters, each word scraping against his throat as regret builds inside him, heavy and sharp. He knows he has hurt her by speaking the truth, yet it is too late to take it back. His mother freezes, her hand still over the ledger, staring at him in disbelief as if the word itself refuses to settle in her mind. Bullying, she repeats, and he bows his head, whispering an apology that only deepens the ache in his chest. Shame burns through him, the word sorry spilling again and again until it feels empty, until he despises himself for being so weak. His mother's voice trembles as she asks why he is apologizing when he is the one suffering, but he cannot stop the cycle. Closing his eyes in despair, he suddenly feels her warmth wrap around him, her embrace soft yet beautiful, and her words flow gently against his ear. She lets him know that he does not need to apologize. She thanks him instead for finding the strength to tell her what must have torn him apart. Tears finally break free as she holds him tighter, admitting her own regret for not noticing his pain, and promising that he does not have to bear it alone anymore. Clinging to her, he feels himself collapse into the safety of being a child again, and in her vow to protect him as his father would have, he senses his late father's presence lingering around them. In that embrace, he begins to share everything about the bullying, each word spilling into the warmth of her arms. Eiji pours everything out, from the isolation that torn him apart after the trouble with Miyuki, to the venom of false rumors spreading across social media, to the cruel scribbles repeatedly done onto his desk that made him cry walking into class each day. He tells her how friends turned their backs, how the weight of it nearly drove him to quit the club that once gave him purpose. His mother's face hardens with a rage he has never seen before, her body trembling as though barely able to contain the rage. Yet when he shifts and speaks of the ones who stood by him, her expression softens, tempered by relief. He recalls how Aoi was the first to believe in him, and how Satoshi bowed low in apology for failing to notice his suffering, and how Takayanagi-sensei moved quickly and firmly to protect him, and how the principal, vice principal, and Iwai-sensei joined forces to shield him from unfairness. Mitsui-sensei's words, too, gave him the courage to stand tall. Hearing this, his mother exhales, nodding with relief, telling him he has strong allies. When he mentions the principal and Takayanagi-sensei's wish to discuss his future, she promises to step in at once, arranging a meeting the next day during lunch. After Eiji leaves to contact his teacher, she remains alone, her voice low but weak. She recalls how she once cherished Miyuki like her own daughter, but that warmth has gone. With eyes burning, she whispers into the silence that she warned Miyuki to stay within reason, and now that line has been crossed. No more forgiveness and no more patience. Whatever happens to Miyuki, she will not care, because her son comes first, and she will do everything in her power to protect him. In that quiet room, it is nothing less than a declaration of war. Miyuki slips into the navy blue one-piece that Kondo once guided her to choose, a dress mature and extremely bold enough to blend into the city night without drawing suspicion, unlike the school uniform that would have caught the police's eye. Though she wears the face of a diligent vice president at school, underneath she admits to herself she is cunning, a girl who doesn't really mind sleeping with anyone she wants, someone who has long loved sneaking into the nightlife unseen. When her mother stops her at the door, worried about her leaving alone in a rather revealing outfit and going out in the dark, she tries to brush it off, but the mention of Eiji's name hits her like ice, forcing a sharp denial from her lips that even startles herself. Guilt flashes when her mother's eyes well up, but frustration wins, and she pushes her mother away with angry words and shouts on how she wants more private space, storming from the house as though running away from everything. At the station, she boards the train and soon rushes toward the familiar glow of the fast food restaurant near the district, where Kondo already waits, relaxed in a jersey that makes him look more like a college player they both made sure to avoid risk. She breathes out a quick thanks as he greets her casually, and when he suggests hitting the arcade, her nerves ease at his presence, so different from Eiji's fragile, wavering atmosphere. Under his steady gaze, she admits softly that she doesn't want to go home tonight. Kondo's grin deepens, and he nods, and less promising to keep her here with him all night long, exactly where he wants her. Eiji's mother grips the phone tightly, her heart steadying as Minami's warm, familiar voice carries through. Once her husband's ally, and now like a grandfather to her children, his concern is unwavering despite his age. She explains that the bullying is real, that the principal and homeroom teacher will come tomorrow to discuss it, and on the other end he reacts with disbelief, unable to believe such cruelty could touch someone as kind as Eiji. He assures her that the principal is trustworthy, but his anger spills as he vows he cannot forgive those responsible. When she thanks him, her tears slip free, slowly moved by his loyalty. He speaks of his enduring connections from his time as mayor, Great the superintendent, and the education commissioner. There were many people who still hold him in respect, people he can call upon. He promises to use his influence, not only for Eiji's sake but also as a way to honor Eiji's father's memory, the husband who had been loved by the city. Hearing that, she feels her resolve strengthen, and the weight on her shoulders lighten by knowing she isn't alone in this fight. After Eiji confides in his mother and collapses into sleep, she moves quietly through the house, tidying up the store with her older son while thinking of the boy resting upstairs. By the time she slips away to leave food outside his room, it's already late in the evening. She sets down a tray with rice balls, miso soup, and a bottle of water, adding a note in her neat handwriting, letting him know that she is aware that he must be tired and adds that he must rest and eat this when he wakes up. When Eiji finally wakes around 9, still drained but steadier than before, he finds her small act of care waiting. The rice balls are cool now, but his favorite fillings, tuna mayo and salmon, remind him of how well she knows him, and the warm soup soothes his heart more than his body. Gratitude fills him from the inside as he thinks of the people who stood by him, his teachers, the principal and vice principal, Aoi, Satoshi, his family. He realizes that what he once thought was gone forever has simply changed shape, leaving him with a different kind of strength. Remembering the rooftop meeting, he admits to himself that without Aoi, he might have broken completely. His phone notification brings these thoughts closer. A message from Aoi, asking brightly to walk to school with him tomorrow. A simple request, but one that now feels like hope. Satoshi's casual check-in follows, light but full of concern. Even his muted SNS accounts, once flooded with harassment, have fallen strangely quiet, likely thanks to Aoi's efforts. Still, unease about facing his classmates remains, especially after recalling how his manuscript for the literature club was tossed away. The file survives on his phone, yet the sting of seeing his work discarded lingers. He steels himself, telling his heart to focus not on what was lost, but on what was found. Thoughts of Miyuki surface then, not of love, but of betrayal and disappointment. Where affection once lived, only anger remains, and with that realization comes a new and unfamiliar feeling, one that makes him want to slowly close his eyes and let it unfold. On the other hand, in the heart of the night district where all sorts of adult activities take place in open, Miyuki curls into Senpai's arms, clinging to the warmth of his words as if they could erase everything else from her. When he mutters that he loves her, her restless heart finds momentary peace, and for a while she can forget the painful guilt, the jealousy, the shadow of Eiji. She presses closer, her voice soft and teasing as she calls to him, and he looks down to her body and revealing outfit that she wore just to make this night memorable for him. With a playful smile, she suggests skipping school together, and shares on how she would like to spend every possible moment by his side. His answer comes without hesitation, full of cunningness and lust of her body, as he pulls her in tighter and her body was almost one with him, and he in a seductive tone promises her the comfort and pleasure that she craves. Eiji rises earlier than usual, his mind replaying yesterday as he gets ready, not wanting to keep Aoi waiting. At breakfast, his mom teases lightly about Aoi coming, and his brother chuckles, easing the mood. When he confirms, his mom cheerfully suggests inviting her for oyster fries, and he promises to let her know. Stepping outside, he finds her waiting with her bright smile, her presence almost angelic as she greets him warmly. They walk side by side at a relaxed pace until she rummages through her bag, announcing she has something for him. He blurts out that it isn't his birthday, but she shakes her head and explains it's a thank you gift for yesterday. Handing him a thick envelope, she urges him to open it, and inside he discovers manuscript pages, the novel he had written, the one he thought discarded by the literature club. Staring at the familiar title, he asks how she managed to retrieve it, and she answers with a playful smile that she worked hard to save it. Eiji grips the envelope like something irreplaceable, showering out his confusion, while Ichijo only shrugs that she just tried her best. He presses further, pointing out he never once told her about being in the literature club, but she calmly explains she noticed novels and old club magazines at his house, though he argues that alone wasn't proof. With a teasing smile, she says such a clue might work in a mystery novel, but real life requires more. Seeing his troubled look, she then reveals she asked Hayashi from her class, who happened to be in the club. The name quickly makes him remembers her face and features, quiet girl, with pigtails, someone he barely spoke to. He wonders if Hayashi also despises him, since rumors and the manager's judgment had already cast out. Eiji listens as she explains Hayashi had heard the rumors but still remembered his kindness when he patiently taught her to use word software, which made her doubt the gossip. He recalls the moment faintly, and when asked if the club mistreated him, he admits it. She then reveals the manager ordered his things discarded, so she asked Hayashi to salvage what she could. Eiji thinks she's reckless when she admits sneaking into the clubroom after their cafe meeting, even lying a little to borrow the key. She only grins like a little spoiled girl, insisting she couldn't let the work of someone she cared for be destroyed out of spite. Her wavering voice stirs his gratitude as he calls it a bad piece of work, but her sharp retort catches him off guard, asking if he's even read it at all. She lowers her head, admitting she couldn't resist and had read the whole manuscript through the night, her tired eyes proof of it. When he asks her opinion, expecting critique, she instead praises it as captivating and insists he has real talent. Her words helps his insecurities, and seeing her laugh softly makes him feel as though he has reclaimed something he thought was gone. Thanking her, he admits her praise gives him courage, and together they walk on, their steps feeling lighter as the burden of the past goes away. Elsewhere in Tokyo, a voice on the phone calmly reports to the police about a couple, likely high schoolers, suspected of staying at a hotel, providing the location with perfect precision. In caller's narration and perceptive, he shares his side of the story. He recalls a story buried deep in his past, confessing he has always been weak. Since kindergarten, he had a childhood friend, a bright and beautiful girl who became his first kiss, his first crush, and eventually his first love. Junior high felt like the happiest time of his life, a promise of forever with the girl who had always been by his side, but it shattered during their first summer at the hands of the trash Kondo from the soccer club. Known for his charm and manipulation, Kondo preyed on her insecurities and turned her against him, mocking that her greatest shame was ever being his girlfriend. The boy confronted her, trembling with desperation, only to face her cold, unfeeling eyes as she clung to Kondo's arm and begged him not to interfere with her happiness. He pleaded, reminding her of their promise to marry, but she crushed him completely, declaring her love for Kondo and demanding he leave them alone. In that moment, his trust, pride, and sense of self were obliterated, and shame drove him to withdraw from school, losing 2 years of his life to isolation. With the persistence of his teachers, he eventually enrolled in a prestigious high school, only to discover Kondo and his former childhood friend there as well, though rumor had it Kondo had quickly discarded her. Still, he chose to avoid them, living as a hollow shell with no friends, no goals, and no faith in others, until everything changed one summer. A year ago, when he met the one who became his hero, Ono Eiji. He isn't like anyone else, and even though the boy keeps to himself, Eiji reaches out the day they become seatmates after a seating exchange, asking with genuine curiosity what book he might recommend since he belongs to the literature club. That small kindness pulls the narrator from his isolated world. They never grow close or linger after school, yet because of Eiji, he starts talking to others again, even smiling. When they are moved into different classes, he clings to the memory of that warmth and friendship, and was determined to silently vowing to repay him someday. Then the rumors spread, whispers that Eiji attacked Miyuki, branding him violent and dangerous. He knows they are lies. Eiji would never do something so cruel, yet the school casts him out, isolating him just as he once was. Searching for the truth, he finds a familiar shadow, Kondo. Seeing this, he remembers all the hardship and painful things he went through because of Kondo, and fury ignites instantly. He understood that Kondo is ruining lives and women again, going from couple to couple, tearing them down for his lust and pleasure. Proof becomes his only goal. Yesterday he catches Kondo slipping into Miyuki's house, and today he trails him to Tokyo, where he watches them slip into a love hotel. His hands shake as he snaps photo after photo, his heart pounding as he dials the police, reporting a high school couple at such a place and giving the address before cutting the call. Staring at the images, he decides what must be done: print them, send them to the school, and finally end Kondo's life. In his mind, Ono Eiji does not deserve such persecution, and Kondo no longer deserves the power to keep ruining lives. This, he believes, is justice, his revenge, for Eiji, for himself, and for everyone scarred by Kondo's cruelty. Takayanagi accompanies the principal to Kitchen Ono, for a meeting scheduled at 9:30 a.m., earlier than planned, as Eiji's mother wished to speak before the restaurant opened. At school, Eiji is now under Mitsui-sensei's supervision, and his special classes begin today. Thanks to the efforts of the principal and vice principal, he will only be a day behind, with arrangements underway for him to make up the sport classes and art credits through remedial work and written reports after school. Eiji himself is absent, leaving only his mother and the teachers to attend. The principal carries a paper bag filled with prepared documents detailing the school's information and proposed plans for Eiji's future. He reminds Takayanagi that as principal he bears the responsibility, asking only for honesty and continued support for Ono and his family, though he admits he trusts Takayanagi's dedication. Takayanagi confesses that his hands are trembling and his heart racing, wishing he could run away, but the principal reassures him that such fear is natural, even for himself, and as teachers they carry the duty of changing students' lives. Steeling himself, Takayanagi agrees, knowing he cannot turn away, and follows the principal to meet Eiji's mother. When the door opens, the principal and Takayanagi-sensei bow deeply, apologizing at once, and though Eiji's mother expects only a polite visit with tea and formal words, their honesty and sincerity give her unexpected reassurance, just as Minami had said about the principal being an excellent educator. Since Eiji's older brother fears he might lose his temper, she has been asked to handle this meeting instead, and she gently tells them to raise their heads before asking when the teachers first noticed something was wrong. The homeroom teacher explains that during homeroom after summer vacation, when he heard Eiji had gone to the infirmary unwell, he saw scribbles on the boy's desk, informed the vice principal, and began discussions on how to respond. Surprised by their attentiveness, she asks if Eiji consulted them right away, but the teacher clarifies that he left the infirmary without returning to class, which led Mitsui-sensei to call her from the infirmary a few days later. She recalls that call clearly, and listens as the teacher continues, saying that he had asked Imai to contact Eiji and questioned him the next day, before presenting a written summary of the situation. Taking the report, she begins to read and finds that it describes Eiji being involved in a romantic relationship, and then strange rumors spreading as a result. Then there were mentions of Miyuki along with the other student without naming them, as well as 2 classmates under investigation for bullying. It also outlines plans to support Eiji academically through special classes starting that day. She pauses when she reaches the final section and asks seriously if they mean what is written, for the report states that in relation to the various acts identified, criminal actions such as property damage and defamation have been confirmed, and that the school is considering harsh disciplinary measures against those responsible, including consultation with the police and potential expulsion or suspension. An approach she rarely hears about in bullying cases. Takayanagi-sensei answers without hesitation, saying the school cannot tolerate such behavior and explaining that while whether to report the slander and other acts to the police will be left to Eiji and his family, the property damage, such as the scribbles on desks, has already been taken to the police since it constitutes clear damage to school property. His mother asks if schools usually avoid involving the police in such matters, and before he can reply, the principal speaks instead, stating that 259 high school students died by jumping last year, though that number also includes cases related to health or family issues, not only bullying. The weight of the statistic cuts into her like a knife, and the principal continues, pointing out that attempts and irreparably damaged lives raise the reality far higher, with this case only one among many. His voice grows firm as he says that when a situation becomes a matter of life and death, the first priority must always be the victim, Eiji, and that it is the responsibility of adults to safeguard his future, for preserving the school's honor means nothing in comparison. Shielding the perpetrators, he adds, would only stunt their growth, while facing the consequences and making amends must be seen as part of their education. His urgent gaze locks on her as he finishes, telling her that to protect Eiji, they need her help. Kondo wakes close to noon with a lazy sigh, deciding to skip school without worry. College invitations are already in hand, so missing a day means nothing. His thoughts drift to the girl beside him, Miyuki, who was there without anything on and was sleeping happily after getting exhausted last night. He looks at her body and quietly mutters that it is time to discard her. But last night, he was blown away and had a blast, so ultimately he reflects to himself that she still offers enough amusement to keep around. He recalls others before her, like the clingy one from junior high who followed him into high school, almost a stalker. By tossing scraps of kindness her way, he kept her in hopes that maybe he would take her back again as his girlfriend, and in this way she became a girl who would come whenever summoned. He thinks that since he is a king, deserves a variety of women. His mood darkens as his mind shifts to Eiji, who seems to be drawing close to Aoi. That irritation grows. For Kondo, Eiji is a pebble in the path of a king, and he must be crushed no matter what. He vows to beat Eiji down again, to drive him out of school. He knew that he can talk his way past Takayanagi useless actions and trick anyone else. The boy was abandoned by Miyuki, must remain in dirt, he mutters, and he gets pleased to wonder how Eiji would get devastated if his new girlfriend Aoi herself casts him off too. Eiji then will break completely, and this wouldn't be a bad outcome. After all, the school idols should belong to the king. At his side, Miyuki mutters in her sleep, whispering love with a gentle smile, and he pats her head, watching her smile grow brighter. They call her popular for her innocent image, which just makes him think of an idea. He would love to force her to dress up in heavy makeup, reshape her into his own type, a bold and very erotic woman, who wouldn't mind getting embraced in public, and this would then help every boy who admire her and have fantasies about her. She might resist, but once dependency takes hold, he can twist her with threats of leaving, controlling her until no one remains to defend her. Then, when she is broken and alone, he will discard her too. A dark fire burns in his chest as he pulls the sleeping girl into his arms, savoring the thought of her ruin. Kondo steps out of the hotel past noon with Miyuki beside him, her honor student mask slipping into guilt as she mutters about skipping school. When she admits she told her parents she was at a friend's house, he notices a clinging look in her eyes that unsettles him, but he brushes it off, telling her they should head home since classes are nearly over. Yesterday's frustration has eased. He took out his rage on Miyuki's body and now he is relaxed and free. He mutters that women are truly the best distraction. They make their way outside, and the moment they step onto the street, a police car screeches to a halt in front of them. Miyuki screams, and Kondo quickly jolts as the window slides down to reveal a young officer whose smile is sharp and cutting. He introduces himself, and in a cold voice he began demanding ID, and both freeze. Miyuki trembles in fear, whispering in panic about being arrested, and Kondo's chest tightens quickly. They aren't in uniform. In street clothes they could pass for college students. But here someone must have recognized him, and he was sure that someone set this up. His mind races, and this is a situation that could seriously harm him. If they're taken in, his reputation is finished forever, alongside with his father's as well. The only path left is to run, but Miyuki is dead weight, taking her along guarantees failure. As the officers step out, closing in, he makes his choice. Shouting for her to run, the almighty king dashes like a scared little girl, and quickly he leaves his so-called queen, abandoning her without any hint of regret or fear. She is caught immediately, while another officer chases him down the street. He felt his heart pounding like never before. But despite this he pushes forward until his foot ends up getting twisted and he falls to the floor with a loud and super satisfying slam, and the searing pain fills his body. Before he can rise, the young officer jumps on him, and in the next second he locks his hands tight. Kondo struggles with everything that he had, and cries for them to let him go, but despair fills in his guts, and as the fall of the so-called king actually becomes real. From a hamburger stand across the street, the caller watches the scene from afar, savoring and enjoying every second of Kondo struggling on the pavement like a crushed insect. Skipping school to witness this spectacle feels entirely worth it. The police pin him down, and Miyuki already in their grip, but this alone isn't enough. He did his research and found that arrests of minors don't always reach the school, unless parents can't be reached or if the case is flagged as special. But here the caller obviously hates him and doesn't care for anything. He was about to take a risk that would end his life for good. The risk is too great, but without this the revenge won't be complete unless the entire school knows. That's why the photos matter. Yesterday's shot of the two slipping into the hotel, today's perfect capture of Kondo being dragged up off the ground, face twisted in panic, each one is a nail in the coffin. Staring at the screen, the caller grips the phone tightly while making sure to capture everything. The king of the soccer club is finally cornered like an insect, and now it's his turn to hit. Kondo shouts and kept struggling, cursing the unknown hand that set him up as he and Miyuki are dragged into the nearest police station. The officers scold them relentlessly, shouts at him for skipping school and her for vanishing overnight. At the mention of a missing persons report filed by Miyuki's mother, Miyuki squirms and begs through trembling tears for them not to call home, but the officers remain firm. Duty requires it. Her breakdown only sharpens the police officers' focus. However, things for Kondo were not so bad. The police officers' words carry a glimmer of hope that only Kondo understands. The police wanted to speak with their parents, and since Kondo's father knew the trash his son was, this was a golden opportunity for him to slip by again. If the school ends up getting a hint of this, then he is done completely. His reputation and college recommendation will not survive this very blow here. He quickly pivots, putting on the act of a devoted boyfriend, claiming Miyuki is blameless, insisting he pressured her, painting himself as the shield for her fragile heart. He even trembles his voice for effect, ready to cry if necessary. It is the role he knows best, the politician's son who inherited the art of manipulation. The officers seem unconvinced but let him cry, warning him not to repeat the offense. He silently congratulates himself. An hour later, his father arrives, bowing with polished sincerity, apologizing for his son's action. In hushed tones, he warns him to lay low since an upcoming event she father has demands no scandals. He promises to bury the incident locally. Kondo enjoys the king's privilege that only he has, and he smiles at how easily the world bends for him. However, everything came crumbling down when Miyuki's mother arrives, her face storming with rage he hadn't anticipated. Eiji walks home beside Aoi once more, her bright voice breaking the quiet as she asks how his special classes are going. He replies that they're surprisingly easy to follow, thanks to the one-on-one guidance, and admits the principal himself even taught his English session. The large man had apologized sincerely for the school's past failures and urged him to rely on the staff if he ever faced more trouble. In just 20 minutes, he managed to cover grammar, vocabulary, and textbook phrases with simple, engaging clarity before switching gears to listening and speaking practice. Using clips from foreign comedies, he paused often to explain nuances, pointing out how words blended in natural speech or how everyday phrases slipped into conversation. He even referenced Armageddon, grinning as he quoted the song lyrics. Though Eiji had always thought of him as a rugby player, the principal's passion for films and his shelves of DVDs gave his lessons an unexpected charm. The Chosen Drama, a quirky romantic comedy about awkward science geniuses, happened to be one of Eiji's favorites, as if it was tailored to keep him motivated. Aoi laughs softly, saying she never knew the principal's classes could be so fun, and notes how fortunate he is to have so many people standing by him. He agrees, struck by how much support surrounds him now, even from the girl beside him, who has become one of the few who truly understand him. Then she hesitates, her tone shy as she admits she wants him to meet someone. Turning toward the gate, Eiji sees Hayashi, a junior from the literature club, waiting nervously with eyes watering as though on the verge of tears. Hayashi stands before Eiji, her face heavy with worry as she lowers her gaze. Aoi bows her gently, inviting her forward, and with a small nod she gathers her courage. Eiji softens his expression, deciding to meet her as a friend rather than someone who had wronged him. The change eases some of her tension, yet when she finally speaks, her voice trembles on the edge of tears. She bows so deeply it seems her forehead might scrape the ground and cries out her apology, admitting she was too afraid to stand up for him, that she failed to protect his manuscript the way Aoi did. Dark spots bloom on the pavement as her tears fall, each drop carrying the weight of her guilt. She confesses she always knew the rumors weren't true, but fear held her back from defying the group. Watching her shake so painfully, Eiji feels no anger, as she was never the one who struck at him directly, and he remembers how she alone among the club members hadn't blocked him online. She doesn't need to be the one apologizing. If only those truly responsible would show such sincerity. Yet even if they did, forgiveness would not come so easily. For now, he listens in silence, then speaks gently, telling her to raise her head. She had helped Aoi return his manuscript, and that mattered more than her guilt. But he can see in her nature that she will carry this burden regardless, punishing herself long after this moment, so he chooses clarity, assuring her that her heartfelt apology means more than she realizes, that she is among the first beyond family and close friends to openly believe in him, and that alone brings him happiness. His words only unleash fresh tears, and Aoi rushes to embrace her, helping her with gentle pats and a steady voice, telling her that her sincerity has already reached him. In that tender moment, Aoi looks almost saintly, her kindness embracing the trembling girl like light. Hayashi continues to whisper apologies between sobs until her tears finally rest, and then they part ways. Later, as Eiji walks home with Aoi, he reflects on how quickly the stares from others have faded, and people already adapting as if nothing had happened. Aoi mentions softly that Hayashi is thinking of leaving the literature club. He answers with quiet relief, knowing it is for the best, as remaining there would only have hurt her further. Eiji looks at her with gratitude and asks why she's always so kind. She reminds him of the day on the rooftop, when he risked his life to stop her and got drenched in the process, saying most people wouldn't have done that. He insists it was just impulse, but she tells him she's alive because of him and is truly grateful. When he mentions how much she's helped not only him but also Hayashi, he feels he owes her more than he can ever repay. She tells him she knows he's lost a lot from the incident, yet not everything is gone, and there are still people who believe in him, and she wanted him to remember that. Smiling shyly, her face glows in the light of the setting sun, so bright he can hardly look at her. He admits the best thing to come from all this was meeting her. She blushes and mutters that it's unfair, calling him an idiot, and her embarrassment fills him with quiet happiness. Miyuki panics, heart pounding through her chest as she imagines what her mother will say. Her arrest is out, and the guilt of betraying not just Eiji but her own mother haunts her. Trembling like never before and pale, she waits as a policeman announces her mother's arrival. The door opens, and her mother's expression was blank, unreadable, showing no emotions, and all there really remained was a woman who had lost all trust in her own flesh and bone. Miyuki sees this and her soul almost leaves her body, and as she saw the face of her mother, it was truly a moment that she would never forget, like divine punishment. In a cold voice her mother questions why she's there, why she wasn't with Eiji, and who the boy was near her, her voice stripped of any warmth. Miyuki stutters, on the verge of tears, trying to explain that she went to Eiji's house last night, but her mother cuts her off, her words steeped in despair. Miyuki's back is drenched in sweat as unbearable pressure builds around her, her mother having spoken with Eiji's mother and the confrontation she has feared finally arriving. Her voice trembles with apology, but fear and guilt twist inside her as she realizes the full weight of her betrayal, of forcing Eiji into isolation, of making him guilty, and she can barely breathe under the pressure. Her mother's anger erupts, demanding why she went to a love hotel with a stranger instead of being with Eiji, and Miyuki tries to evade the truth, claiming she broke up with Eiji and that Kondo is now her boyfriend, but her words only fuel the fury. A sharp slap burns her cheek, the sting making her flinch as she realizes her gentle mother has completely given up on her, severing the bond they once shared and flooding her with sorrow, self-blame, and regret. Her mother's anguished cries echo through the room, demanding an apology to Eiji while clutching her chest in pain, and Miyuki reaches out, only to be pushed away as her mother collapses, and a nearby police officer rushing to help while chaos consumes the waiting room. Kondo sees the chaos, and he was frustrated that if Miyuki's mother had gone to Eiji with her, everything would have been exposed, but his father calms him and offers a plan, noting her faintness and suggesting that once she calms down then for the right price she'll keep quiet, and Kondo can't help but admire his rational, helpful father compared to Miyuki's wild and stupid mother. With Miyuki's crisis under control, he resolves to stay cautious, knowing that keeping quiet until graduation will prevent the school from discovering the truth, while the rumors he's spread ensure Eiji's downfall. He anticipates Miyuki clinging to him, abandoned by her mother and losing her childhood friend, and he relishes the thought of having her all to himself, imagining the fun he'll have at school with his soccer team and his new favorite toy, basking in the great outlook of his manipulations. Eiji walks home with Aoi, and their conversation flowing endlessly as they discover how little they truly know about each other despite being best friends, and he resolves that today he must make her eat fried oysters, curious why she likes them, and learns they were her late mother's specialty for birthdays, which makes him feel full of sympathy and he apologizes, but she smiles and reassures him, mentioning she knew he had to tell her about his father eventually, and as they continue chatting about such small details, a car pulls up in front of them and an old man with gray hair steps out. Kondo recognizes the man as a friend of his father and the former mayor, Uncle Minami, who greets him warmly, commenting on how well he seems to be doing, and Aoi looks on curiously, whispering why the former mayor speaks so openly. Eiji began to explain that Minami loved Eiji and his brother like grandchildren, and this ends up leaving her surprised and somewhat in disbelief. Uncle Minami had been a benefactor who supported his father's volunteer work, allowing the city park for a soup kitchen, expanding charitable activities, and creating regulations for the children's soup kitchen movement, ultimately helping the city gain a reputation as an excellent place to raise children, and even after his 3 terms and his father's death, he continues volunteer work and cares for Kitchen Ono. He ends up offering Eiji and Aoi a ride to his house, while Aoi nervously introduces herself. Uncle Minami drives them to a nearby park and asks if Aoi can step outside so he can speak privately about Eiji's father, and Eiji agrees, saying he has nothing to hide, and somehow ends up making the former mayor to laugh softly and remark that Eiji truly reflects his father. Sitting together, Uncle Minami recalls how quickly time has passed since his father's death, and praises Eiji for growing into a good high school student, and apologizes for taking his father away, bowing with tears in his eyes. Eiji gently tells him to raise his head, and Uncle Minami explains that he wants to make amends properly, acknowledging how his father carried too heavy of a burden in volunteering at Kitchen Ono, reflecting sincerely on his responsibility and kindness. Eiji senses the depth of his remorse and understands the unusual worry Uncle Minami has held since his father's passing, but he reminds him that it was his father's choice, daring to use the word father with reverence. Eiji listens as Uncle Minami confesses that he made his father choose, that he regrets pushing him to be idealistic and taking on too much, and he fears that what he did must have caused his collapse. Eiji shakes his head, insisting that it is not true, that his father smiled with satisfaction when he died, and that no one should deny his father's will, no matter how much they want to. He reminds Uncle Minami that he has inherited his father's ideals well, and that his father would have wanted someone else to carry them on without regret, and he would have been angry if Uncle Minami let sorrow weigh on him. Uncle Minami laughs, eyes still wet, telling Eiji he has grown into a good man, and that he has learned something from him today. He gazes at Eiji tenderly, vowing that he cannot forgive those who tried to harm him, that even if Eiji thinks it is none of his business, he will protect him as an adult, for his father's sake, and fulfill his responsibilities. Remembering his father's smile, Eiji feels his heart stir, realizing he is supported and protected by those who care for him, and they share a quiet, heartfelt laugh together. Caller sits alone, turning over the evidence in their mind, weighing the next move. The easiest method is to release it online, where it would hit hard and fast, but that is the last resort. First, the plan is to alert the teachers and the soccer club anonymously, letting the information ripple internally and create disruption. If any attempt is made to cover it up, they will be struck hard, with leaks to social media, the city government, and the press, all without revealing the source. Money is not the motive, justice is. The violence and abuse cannot go unpunished while the mastermind remains untouched. Kondo's name is sharp on their mind, a target of their wrath. They resolve to destroy everything he has built, to make him taste the despair that once consumed them. Ueda walks back into the clubroom after practice, exhausted but aware of the approaching tournament. Kondo is off today, and the team feels the absence. The soccer team had been weak before Kondo arrived, but his presence transformed them, elevating their skills to national-level competition. The second and first-year students, especially those active in junior high, idolize him, and the team thrives under his guidance. Their admiration is so intense that they had bullied Eiji simply to please him, believing that anything done to make Kondo-senpai happy is justified. Ida gushes over senpai's skill, particularly his soft passes, claiming they are J-League level and calling him a treasure for Japanese soccer. Ueda chuckles at Aida's fanaticism but feels a creeping unease despite keeping a composed exterior. The team's blind devotion worries him. Ida would dismiss any doubts as foolish. Suddenly, Mitsuda calls their attention, holding a strange envelope found outside the clubroom. It has no address, but curiosity wins, and he tears it open. The moment the contents spill out, Mitsuda's face shifts from red to white, hands trembling as the envelope and photo hit the floor. Ueda and his friends pick up the photo and are instantly unsettled. The image shows Kondo-senpai secretly entering a love hotel with Miyuki, with subsequent shots documenting their closeness. Shock and confusion spread through the group as the implications hit. Senpai, who had been consulted about Eiji's stalking and violence, might actually be dating Miyuki. The revelation leaves Ueda wishing he had never seen it, burdened with this new knowledge he cannot unlearn. Ueda stares at the photos, struggling to process what he sees. Was Eiji really violent with Miyuki, or is this something else entirely? He asks this again and again. The images suggest Senpai is having an affair with her, a thought that makes his stomach twist. Ida trembles beside him, his eyes wide with disbelief. The image of the invincible Senpai and shatters. Panic spreads as the pictures sink in. One of the third-year senpais cries out, worried about underage laws and the upcoming tournament, their final chance for college recommendations hanging in the balance. Mitsuda questions who could have taken the photos, his voice raised, and suspicion flickers across every face in the room, each teammate wondering if a traitor lurks among them. The next photo lands like a blow. Miyuki is grabbed by a policeman while Kondo-senpai lies restrained on the ground, struggling to escape. Immediately the shock erupts like never before. The so-called ace of the team, the one they idolize, is caught by the police, which is about to become a reason for a cycle of related events that could take place. All the financial support might be withdrawn, and the club could be punished or even shut down, and all of their futures crumbling like sand. Ueda hears the panic in their voices, the fear and outrage mixing into a chaotic roar. They began to call for the culprit, and different accusations began to fly around the room. Everyone was full of anger and desperation, and the clubroom descends into complete chaos. Their small foundation of their world shaking with every shout. Caller arrives at the station closest to school by 3 o'clock, retrieves the uniform from the coin locker, changes quickly in the bathroom, and walks towards school with a neutral expression. Classes are over, and club activities underway, and having called in to excuse their absence, no one suspects anything. Even if they encounter someone they know, a simple explanation about feeling unwell while retrieving a forgotten item will be enough. Revenge is the only priority. The soccer clubroom is far from the field, so approaching it in full uniform draws no attention. All that remains is to drop an envelope containing the photos inside, while keeping a calm demeanor. The club members, obsessed with Kondo, participated willingly in Eiji's bullying under a misguided sense of justice, and there will be no mercy for them. The soccer team is bound to face disbandment because of the photos. If they survive, they cannot compete effectively, and the fallout will play out naturally as the members craft their own narratives. Mitsuda, the senpai, is merely a hanger-on riding Kondo's reputation, while most bullying was done by second-year students who foolishly posted evidence on SNS, leaving their involvement exposed. The school's investigation has already begun, so most of the truth is likely already known. As Miyuki is now completely detached from her mother, and Kondo's is truth revealed, their painful downfall will only get more and more cruel as time goes by. The karma doesn't leave them easily and makes sure to tear their lives apart, proving the fact that whatever you do always come around.